In today's video, I'm going to continue our NHL prediction series where I'm making a lot of predictions heading into the 2018-19 season. Today we're going to kick off a series of 4 videos where I give you my thoughts and predictions on the NHL standings for each division. Today we're going to get started with the Atlantic Division, and that's coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top, today we're going to do some NHL standings predictions for the end of the year. Obviously, keep in mind this is completely just for fun. These are just my opinions based on the early things that have happened during the offseason here before the season even gets underway. Training camps have not opened. There could be a lot of things that happen or change to cause these results to be different, and I very well may change my opinion here once the season gets kicked off here. Whether you agree or disagree with my predictions or thoughts, leave a comment down below. We can continue to have a mature discussion down in the comment section. So we're going to work from last up to first here, and we're going to get started with the number 8 team in the Atlantic Division, which I'm predicting to be the Detroit Red Wings. Now, the Detroit Red Wings are not expected to be overly competitive this year. They're going through a major transition phase. We've just learned here in the past week that Henrik Zetterberg definitely won't be attending training camp for the Red Wings, and he's not likely going to be playing this season. That is going to be a major blow for Detroit. Now, obviously, the Red Wings do have a lot of good things going for them in respect to some youth. Obviously, guys like Anthony Mantha and Dylan Larkin have new contracts, and they're expected to take on bigger roles here within the team. They do have some other guys like a Philip Zadina, Michael Rasmussen, who have an excellent shot at making the club here at a training camp. So obviously there is some youthful optimism in the air in Detroit, which is great. They'd had a lot of other selections at the draft here in 2018 that look pretty solid here as well, including Joe Veleno and Jared McIsaac. So obviously, you know, they have a lot to be hopeful for in the future. But right now there's a lot of question marks around their goaltending. They have obviously Jimmy Howard and Jonathan Bernier. So we'll see how they can do with platooning in goal. Their defense is not the greatest. I mean, they're not the most mobile. They don't have a very young decor right now. And obviously, like I said, within the forwards, they do have some guys who can be optimistic to put the puck in the net. But there's just a lot of youth there. And with obviously some of the guys that are transitioning here, you know, they don't have Zetterberg for this year. So with everything going on with the Red Wings right now, I do think we'll see a lot of bright spots for their future with the young guys on the team this year. But unfortunately, I do see them finishing in the basement for the Atlantic Division for the 18-19 season. Next up in 7th place, unfortunately, I have the Montreal Canadiens. So Habs fans, I am sorry, but this is where I feel they're going to finish this year. I do think we're going to see some bounce-back performances out of guys like Carey Price and Max Pacioretty, but there's just way more questions than we have answers, especially after we've seen what happened with the Max Pacioretty golf tournament. You can tell there's a real awkward tension between Pacioretty and Marc Bergevin, Jeff Molson. It looks as though they do want to move on from Pacioretty, which I don't understand. We'll see how the trade works out too for Galchenyuk and Domi over the summertime, but I'm not a big fan of that trade so far. Hopefully Domi will prove me wrong and perform well for the Habs. I'm sure he's a player that Habs fans will definitely like to watch and enjoy. You know, he does play with a lot of energy, but whether or not he gets it done on the score sheet will, I guess, yet to be seen here. But with everything going on with that club, I mean, we know Shea Weber's going to be out for an extended period of time to start the year. Everything going on with Pacioretty, you know, I do think Price will bounce back. I did do a bounce back video where I put Price as one of the guys to look for to bounce back this year. So I do expect a better season under Carey Price. I just have way more questions than answers and more concerns for this team moving forward. And it might actually be, to be honest, in their best interest to not finish real high in the standings to get another high draft pick for the 2019 draft, because it's a well-stacked draft. And any team that's really going to bottom out this year will have a pick of the litter at some great players leading into the NHL 19 draft next summer. Next up in 6th place, not far ahead of the Montreal Canadiens, I have their rivals, the Ottawa Senators. Now, Ottawa's obviously going through a lot of turmoil as well. The only reason I picked Ottawa to finish ahead of Montreal and Detroit, and to be completely honest, I don't think it's going to matter a whole lot here, because really there's not going to be a lot of difference in the standings, I don't think. All 3 of these teams are going to be near the bottom and be a ways away from the leaders of the group here. But I do think Ottawa players have a little bit more going for them this year, as a lot of them are playing for contracts. You've got guys like Erik Karlsson looking for a big extension. You've got Matt Duchene playing for an extension. You've got Mark Stone. So you have a lot of their top players, regardless if their long-term future is in Ottawa or not. They obviously want to continue playing hockey and need to obtain nice big contract extensions, whether it be with the Senators or elsewhere. So I think they're going to have more to play for, and I do think they'll accomplish just a little bit more this year to get themselves up the standings in the 6th place. Next up, on 5th place, I've got the greatly improved Buffalo Sabres. Now, I've seen some other prediction videos where they've had the Sabres a little higher, and I don't think we're going to go that far during one season, but they do certainly have a lot of reasons to be optimistic for sure. Adding in rookies like Rasmus Dahlin and Casey Middlestat will be a huge help. Obviously, they made a big trade with the Blues this offseason. They moved off Ryan O'Reilly, got a pretty decent haul of players in return. Mind you, O'Reilly's a really solid player, so I do think he'll be missed in a lot of capacities that he played for the Sabres, but still, they get a good haul of players in return for that. Plus, they brought in Jeff Skinner from Carolina without really taking anything off their roster as well. So I do think this team is going to be greatly improved. I think they will make some steps forward. I don't see them quite moving up too far into standings just yet, though, as the teams I have ahead of them I think are just too strong to get that far in 1 year. But I do like where the Sabres are going. I think for the first time in a while, we're going to see some real progress here, and they are going to work their way up into 5th place. Next up at number 4 and 4th place here, we get the Florida Panthers. Now, last year, the Panthers just barely missed the playoffs by, I believe it was 1 measly point here. Obviously, that goes to show 1 overtime loss or 1 regulation loss. Somewhere along the line really made all the difference in the world for their year of making the playoffs or not. At this point in time, the main question I have for them is in goal. Luongo and Reimer have both played pretty well, but they both had some health issues. So those are my concerns with the Panthers. They brought in yet another scoring forward in the offseason with Mike Hoffman. Hopefully the drama that potentially went with Hoffman out of Ottawa to Florida doesn't go with him, and that's not a distraction. But they do have, on paper here, they have a lot of young players here that can step into their lineup. They got a lot of top 6 forwards already in place. Their defense isn't too bad. So if their goaltending can stay healthy and Luongo can keep playing at the rate he's been for, putting up another, 40, 50 games at the solid numbers with Reimer pitching in the rest for the backup duties here, I do think the Panthers have a strong potential to be a playoff team, and I can see them finishing up as high as 4th place. In 3rd place here, I've got the Boston Bruins. Now, the top 3 from last year, we have Tampa, Toronto, Boston. I think will be the top 3 again. I just think the order will be a little bit different after the 18-19 season. Now, the Boston's team really hasn't changed too much from last year. Obviously, they brought in a rental Rick Nash at the deadline. He's since moved on. But for the most part, they're going to have a very similar team heading into the 18-19 season. I do think they have a pretty balanced scoring approach up front. I mean, I've read that David Backes has had a pretty good offseason, shedding a little bit of weight, working on getting quicker. You got youngsters like Ryan Donato and Jake DeBrusk hopefully taking another steps forward. They got a pretty solid goalie in Tuukka Rask, some good defensemen. So really, overall, I really like this Bruins team. I do see them being a playoff team. I'm just not quite sure they're going to rack up enough points to finish ahead of the other 2 guys I have in front of them here. Next up in 2nd place, I've got the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, a lot of people are having the Leafs in 1st and planning the parade, and I do think that they do have an excellent shot at winning this division, and I do think they'll be a playoff team, and really, on paper, they do look pretty stacked, so they definitely have to be in the conversation for potential Stanley Cup contenders, but I do see them finishing here in 2nd place, just a little bit shy. Now, yes, John Tavares has come in, and he's going to be a tremendous addition to that forward group, but at the same time, they did lose quite a bit during this offseason as well to make room for him and others to come into the mix. So even though Tavares is a tremendous addition, they've also lost some guys as well, including 30-plus goals from JVR, Tyler Bozak, Leo Komarov. Obviously, they have other guys that can step in and fill those roles. So even though John Tavares will be a strong addition with what they've lost, I do think overall they are a better team. I just think they're still going to have a hard time getting into 1st place and beating out the team I have there, which obviously, as you figured out by now, is the Tampa Bay Lightning. I do have the Lightning pegged here to win the Atlantic Division here yet again. I do think it will be close, though. I can see it coming right down to the last few games. I don't think there's going to be a great deal of separation between Tampa, Toronto, and Boston. I can all see them hovering up right around 100-plus points, probably with only 1 to 2 points in between each team. I can certainly see coming right down to the wire. And their divisional series where they have to play each other throughout the year is likely going to decide who wins the division, who finishes 2nd and 3rd and whatnot. But I do think all 3 teams are really strong. All 3 teams should make the playoffs here without too much trouble, especially considering the other teams in the division don't quite match up at this point in time. With everything what Tampa has on their roster, I do think they have a slight edge in goal. Slightly, I really like Freddie Anderson. I just think Vasilevsky's game is just a little bit better. I do like Tampa's defense way better. If Toronto does have a weakness, it's on the back end for sure. It's well discussed. I do think it's a little bit better than a lot of people say, but Tampa's I still think is a little bit better. Again, for sure they got a lot of veterans back there, so I do give them the edge in that department. And up front, Tampa's offense is pretty potent, just like Toronto's. So I do think Tampa will slightly edge them out to finish in 1st place here. So those are my Atlantic Division predictions. I'd love to hear your thoughts on my predictions here, and I'd love to hear what yours are. So let me know down in the comments how you think these teams are going to finish during the 18-19 season. Again, this is just a fun exercise for predictions so we can talk about it and have something to look back on later in the year to see how much we had right and how much we had wrong. Like I said, it's just for fun. If you're new to the channel here, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.